Welcome to this Skills Spotlight session. My name is Dave Gerald and I'm the Skills Development Consultant here at Edinburgh Napier. Now, the topic for today is effective teams, and we have a blended session for you. I'm going to share two training models in particular that help us to understand what the team processes are that all our teams go through and how to build and maintain those teams effectively. And then we're going to hear from two guests, two Napier alumni, who are going to share their experiences of being part of and building and maintaining effective teams. So let's dive straight in and let's get into the training materials. So the first model that I want to share with you, make it a little bit bigger, is the team life cycle. This is Tuckman and Jensen, 1977. Those of you who've done team development, especially if you've studied here at Napier, you'll recognize this. It's a core part. I mean, it goes back to 1977, but it's still used as one of the main tools for helping us understand the process that teams go through. So it holds water still. And just to run through it very briefly, to give a recap to those of you who do know it, when we come together in a new team, we start by having a forming stage. We literally come together and we we see who we are as a team, who our members are, start thinking about why we're here and what the team's going to be for. And then we have a storming phase. That's when we're kind of testing each other out and we're seeing how people work, how people operate, what people like, what they don't like, how certain operating styles fit and don't fit with each other sometimes. And we need to go through that storming phase before we can achieve norming. And that, as the name of the stage suggests, that's when we establish the norms for our team. That's how we will do things around here. That's how we will operate. That's how we will work together. And we set and create and establish those norms for us as a team. And once we've got those norms about how we're going to, it's like agreement level, how we're going to work together. Once we've got that in place, then we can push on for that and get to the point where we can perform and work well as a team. And then ultimately, we get to the adjourning or reforming stage. Sometimes that element has different names, but we'll get to the end of the cycle. Now, as I've said, it goes back to 1977. It's still used, so it's clearly a valid and valuable model. But I do have a couple of caveats. I think firstly is that we need to think about it on a macro and a micro level. So on a macro level, this might be the process that our team goes through in its whole life cycle, maybe over a period of months or a period of years even. But it works also on a micro level. If someone's had a really bad night's sleep and comes in and they're grumpy, you might be jumping back to that storming phase and figuring out how are we going to work well together today because someone's not firing on all cylinders, or they have a bad phone call and they're off their game for 20 minutes before they're back on it again. So small things make a difference. So it's not just the overall life cycle of the team, it's how we operate on a day-to-day level and hour-to-hour level sometimes, and how the team works effectively. And the other point is that it's rare that we're in a situation where we're part of a perfect team that forms, it storms, it establishes its norms, it performs, and then it gets to the end of its life cycle. This is quite often more like a wave than it is a single cycle, because we get to a certain point, maybe we adjourn, get to the adjourning point because someone leaves and a new member joins our team. So we're back to that point again, and we keep going and we keep going because it's part of our job, our role, not just a simple project that we've been part of, and we get to the point of completion. So we go backwards and forwards, and it's more like a wave than it is a simple curve. And that gives us the caveats, but like I say, it's still valuable, it's still used. But there's been a lot of research that's gone on the back of this and built from it, some more academically focused than others, some more practical than others. But all of this is fed into the development of the next model that I want to share with you. And that's this, it's the Effective Teams Assessment Matrix. And all of that previous research feeds into this, as well as a lot of practice and experience in working with different teams in different businesses and different working environments. And this distills down the key components that are required for a team to be effective. So let me just walk you through it. So first of all, there are the aims. So a team needs to know why it's there, why it's created, what its raison d'etre is, why it exists. And it needs to know what it is there to deliver, what the outcomes are that are expected of that team and the level and the scale of those outcomes. And then there's the contributions. So each team member needs to know what they bring to the table, what they contribute to that team, operating effectively and delivering the outcomes that it's there to deliver. And they need to value their contribution and the contribution of other people, and others need to value their contribution. And if we don't have that common valuing of each other's contributions towards a team, that can lead to fractured operating environments and people not working well together. And then communication. So if you've ever done any work with groups around teams that aren't working well, and you say what the challenge is, I guarantee you won't be sitting there for long before someone says communication. Now, for my money, communication is a symptom mostly rather than a cause, but that doesn't take away from its importance within an effective team context. So 2 things around communication. It needs to be clear and it needs to be open. So there's no point being open and honest if you're unclear and people don't know what you're talking about or don't know what you mean. And there's no point being clear and being understood in what you're communicating if you're not open and honest and you're holding certain things back. So those are the 2 critical elements that need to be in place for communication to be effective and not to be a problem within a team. Then there's challenges and how a team deals with challenges. Now, there are always problems, there are always setbacks, there are always difficulties. So how does the team, what's the approach within the team to tackle problems? How are they faced, and how are they dealt with? And similarly, conflict. What's the norm? What's the way that the team deals and faces up to conflict? Is it seen as a positive that's stimulating and creative and drives things forward? Or is it a point of fracture within the team? Does it cause the team to splinter and not to work effectively together? And then there's a system. So a team needs to have operating processes, systems, ways of working, things that enable things to get done, that process that underpins everything. And then we need to know about progress. We need to be able to track and understand our progress so that we know that as a team, we're delivering on the what, we're delivering on the aims, the reasons why we're there as a team, and that we can measure that progress and that progression. And finally, there's culture. And if you've ever been part of a team that works really well together, this is an intangible. It's harder to define, but support is a big part of that. Do people assume that everyone's working on best intent and with best intent? And if something's not working, it's not so-and-so's not done their job properly, that's a problem. It's hope everything's okay. That's not usual for them not to be able to deliver. Let's check in. Let's make sure everything's okay. Let's back people up. And that instinct of support rather than an instinct of criticism is a really essential element of a positive culture within a team. And the final part is enjoyment. And we can do that when all these other bits fall into place, because it's really important that we enjoy the work that we do, and we feel valued, and we feel like we're making a positive contribution. And we get all of that when all of these elements are in place. So this was developed, as I said, it's built on the research and all of the work that's gone before it around effective teams, but it's designed to be not just another piece of academic research and insight, but a tool that can be used either when we are creating a team as a template for the elements that we need to have in place in order to build an effective team, or as a way to assess a health check on the teams that we're a part of. And we can sit and use this as a template to assess our teams and use each of those elements to identify what's working well and perhaps what isn't. And then we can identify how we can deploy our resources and provide support in the right way and at the right time and in the right area in order to enable our teams to become more effective. Now, there are deeper ways that it can be used, but maybe that's something we'll come on to our discussion, possibly not. We'll see where we get to today. And so at that point, I am going to end with the training materials and move us on to our discussion with our 2 guests for today. So welcome to the discussion session of today's training. I'm going to introduce our 2 guests to start with, and then we'll get into the meat of our discussion. Well, actually, I'm not. I'm going to ask our guests to introduce themselves. So Nathalie, if I can come to you first and just ask you to tell us a bit about what you do and your organisation.
Thanks, Dave. So yes, I'm an Edinburgh Napier University graduate. I studied communications back in the, I think graduated around about 2004. 2003. Since leaving Napier, went on to work in PR and communications, firstly in London, then coming back to Scotland, where I set up Muckle Media 12 years ago. We are Scotland's first PR agency to become a B Corp, which is a big ethical stamp that shows that we put other priorities alongside shareholder returns and profit. And I also chair the Institute of Directors Edinburgh branch, which is a really interesting experience as well, because I get to meet lots of other interesting directors, that are also facing challenges, which definitely often come back to team.
I love the name Muckle Media. Where did that come from?
So a mickle makes a muckle is an old phrase, and people think that means lots of small things make something big, but actually I've researched this. A mickle is a big thing as well, so it's lots of good things come together to make something even better.
Excellent. I love that. And Jude, can I come to you? Can I tell you who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO for the Cyber and Fraud Centre in Scotland. We are based in Edinburgh, but we also have offices in Aberdeen and Dundee as well. And the offices in Dundee are basically housing 27 part-time ethical hackers at Aberdeen University that work with us part-time. We deliver incident response for organisations in Scotland. We deliver training around prevent and protect. And also we deliver some projects as well for Scottish Government.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again for joining us. So our topic today is teams and effective teams and how we create them and how we support them, how we sustain them. So I'm going to ask you about three different areas. First of all, I'm going to ask you about your experience of what it takes to create an effective team in your business area and in your organization. Because I think there might be some differences. I'm sure there'll be some similarities. So it'll be interesting to get into that. And then we'll talk about your experiences of building a team and putting a team together and how you've gone about that and what that experience has been like. And then finally, we'll talk about what it takes to support and maintain and perhaps repair a team if things have started to slide and things maybe aren't working as effectively as you would hope they would. So let's start with that first bit. So for your particular business area or for your organization, what does a good team look like, an effective team look like? And Jude, can I stick with you and ask you to kick us off with this?
And I think from our perspective, the team that we want are people that pull together and everybody's heading in the right direction. And there has to be one direction that has to be set very clearly by myself and also the board and the management team as well. And a clear strategy as well of what we're about, but also our purpose. What do we want to be known for? And what do we want to deliver? When we sit back at the end of the year, what exactly have we worked on so people then can see why we are a team and why we all come together. I think what's important as well that, we can talk about theory, we can talk about different things, but we can say there's a strategy. Sometimes we forget that to give the team the tools to deliver the strategy. And that sometimes is, if there's a change in strategy, you're also looking at change management. It's basically hand holding a team. We can't just turn around and go, there's your strategy in writing. What does it mean for us as a team? What kind of tools do we need to give the team? What kind of training, what kind of support, what kind of skills? And all the time revisiting to make sure that people are comfortable with the team dynamics and how it's been pulled together. What I want from a team is a high performing team, but more importantly, a good team, a team that support each other and that they respect each other as well. So things around the support that is like, for me, again, it means that unhidden rule of that we support working mothers as much as we can and also working fathers as well. So they're pulling their weight. And that's really important for me. From whenever I had my children, I felt sometimes unsupported by organizations that you'd sit at your desk and you'd be there. We're talking about things like sports days and stuff as well, that you miss out so much on your children because you have to take team days. So I don't want people to have to ask for permission to do things like that. I want the team to say, all right, I'll cover that for you if you want to do that. So everybody having each other's backs, but also be high performing as well.
It's an interesting balance in that. I think we'll dig into that as we get into the rest of our discussion. And Natalie, from your side, as I say, I'm sure there'll be similarities, but I'm interested in what they are and what the differences might be.
Yeah, definitely. So I went back to basics here a bit and looked at the definition of a team. So the definition, there's a few out there, but the one I liked was to come together for a common goal. And that really feeds into what Jude was just saying around setting a very clear strategy, having that leadership position, and ensuring that the team are really clear on what we're trying to achieve and where we're trying to get to. And for different teams within an organization and different individuals, that will mean different things. So it's how do you consistently, to use a kind of analogy, it's getting the right people on the bus in the right seat, going the right way. So to me, that's really what a good team looks like, and that requires leadership and strategy. I would also say in our organisation, we're very values led. So we've got 3 values. The first is to be kind. That's really important in a team because it's about respecting each other, and again, you can interpret being kind in lots of different ways. So to be kind, and that's about being a team player. It's about being nice to each other. It's about thinking about other people as part of the decision. Our second is to get results. So again, feeds really well into this team structure of what are the results we're trying to achieve. In my business, there's 2 strands to that. It's getting results for our clients, which is what makes our business tick. It's also getting results for the business. So to get results and then to leave the world in a better place. So that's about thinking about the impact of what we do and ensuring that we're not damaging, the environment, the community, whatever it might be in the work that we do.
Fantastic. So I'm hearing, in terms of similarities, there's a few things that I'm picking out there. So that thing around leadership, around strategy, about common vision, and that's around potentially above the team or feeds into a team, so that the team, as you say, facing in that same direction and knows what it's there to do and what it's all about. There's something about the tools, and I think you're absolutely right. Theory is great. There is a good lens at times, but we need something. Okay, so what? How do we then actually do that? So we'll come back to that point. But then I love the fact that 2 other things, that balance between being kind, being ethical, supporting life as well as work, and having that ethos within teams, but balancing that with the results and the performance and achieving what we're there to achieve. And I get the sense that you both sort of signed up to the perspective that if we treat our people well and create that supportive environment, you will get the best from people. And actually, if we over dominate by just focusing on results, we tend to neglect the people side of it, and that doesn't bring the best out of people. Yeah. So really interesting to see some of those commonalities. So that kind of leads me into the next part, which is thinking about your experience of how you've used some of those ingredients I'm going to stretch an analogy about team cakes now, but to if you're in that situation of building a team, putting a team together, how you've brought all those ingredients to the table in order to create that effective team, and what your experience has been there. So I'll maybe ask you to kick us off with this one, Natalie. What's your experience been like?
Yeah, so a few initial sort of starting points on it. I think you've got things like the hierarchy of needs and just considering some of that. So what do people really need just to be able to operate? And then how do you get extra value out of people by, providing other sort of stimulants? I think in terms of building a team, it's a little bit chicken and egg. You need to think in both directions. So you can do some structural thinking without the people in it and thinking about the roles in a team and who do you need and what do these roles look like. But for me, I think what brings that alive is actually going against the kind of grain of take the people out of it and really do think about the people you already have, especially if you're an established team. Because I've been told in the past there's a rule when you look at a structure, you don't put the people in it, you put the roles. I kind of turn that around and think about the people you have got, think about their skills, think about what they're good at, and try not to pigeonhole people too much. In my industry in particular, we're a team of 20, we're pretty much all 20 PR consultants. So in theory, we all do the same thing different clients and then different levels of experience and so on. But to be good at PR, you need to be, you be able to budget, you need to be creative, you need to be a good writer, you need to be strategic, you need to manage clients and relationships, you need to pitch and sell, you need to manage colleagues. And I could go on for a lot longer about all the different things you might be doing in PR. And actually, when you look at that as a job description and a sort of role specification, the people that are really creative aren't always the people that are best to manage the budget, for example. So, traditionally, my work experience before I started my business was that you had to tick a lot of boxes to progress. And I know this is about teams and not managers, but that you become really good and you become a manager because you're good at a area rather than because you're a good manager necessarily. So I guess that's quite top line. I could go a bit deeper into that, but yeah, I think thinking about managers of teams as being people that are good at managing people and people that want to manage people. So we've really tried to think, we've kind of restructured slightly in a matrix approach so that people have the opportunity to move up as people managers if that's the career aspiration that they've got, but that actually to develop and progress in your career, you don't have to be a people manager and you don't need more people underneath you to, increase the value you're bringing to the business. So it's about thinking a bit more vertically and horizontally about how people can progress within a team. And if you've got a fantastic strategist that just wants to be really good at strategy, then let them, niche into that and bring a lot of value. And if they don't like managing people, then that's okay, because you don't want your teams managed by people that don't want to be managing teams.
It sounds like quite a fluid structure or a fluid approach that, as you say, you're not like, this is the hierarchy, this is the structure, I'm going to plug people into it, but let's look at people's strengths, let's look at where people develop into, and then how almost organically the organization and the teams within it morph and kind of grow within that.
Yeah, I think that's my dream. I think in reality, people do still quite like some rules and some guidelines and some boxes to sit in. So that would be the future if we could really crack it. I think at the moment we're somewhere in the middle. I've tried innovative things. I've asked everybody to create their own dream job spec of what would your job actually be and what would it not be. That's a really interesting, exercise. And then when you think about hiring future people in, you could look at what's the stuff that we need to do that nobody wants to do, because there's always somebody out there that actually enjoys everything that needs to be done in an organization. Really, you've got different people out there, so you can be innovative and think like that. We've also done a task swap, so we do team days regularly where everyone comes together, and I've given out post-its and said, write something on this post-it that you don't want to do anymore. We'll stick them all on the wall. You can pitch this task that you don't want anymore. And if a colleague will take it away off your hands and you take something else, then you don't need to do it anymore. So a bit of fun.
I find that kind of real people focus fascinating. How are you connecting that with the results and with the outcomes and with the things that your teams are needing to achieve? How's that balance working, or how does it work?
Yeah, I guess that comes back to this values piece. So we always talk about, you need to be kind, but you need to get results and leave the world in a better place. And those three things, if it was on a mixing desk, I think sometimes people think that to be kind and to get results are at opposite ends, and they're definitely not. You should be able to have two mixings where you're really kind or you're not kind. We don't want you if you're not kind. But also you get really good results, and it's about creating that space. I mean, I certainly wouldn't say we've cracked everything. It's always going to be a journey, and you fix one thing and something else breaks, but it's certainly where we're trying to get to. And I think if the intention's there, that's a big part of it.
It's really interesting. Well, we'll come back to that maintenance bit in a minute. So Jude, your experience then of like how you've gone about putting teams together and building those effective teams.
So it's actually a really good time for this to happen, because I took on the role 4 years ago, and I took on a team that wasn't, it probably wasn't operating as a team. It was very, there was different cultures involved in it. We'd police seconded, we'd fire people seconded. So it was everybody, a mishmash of everything. So, and also then it was the week of COVID, so I didn't actually meet the team. So I had to try and build a team of people that I didn't even know what they looked like. I didn't know what they're, I asked them then to all write a paragraph of who they are, what makes them tick, what their families are like, where they've got kids. So I was trying to go, all right, so that person then looks after marketing, and I had it all hung out on my wall. I was like, this is ridiculous. So that was a big steep learning curve, and trying to build a team and figure out, first of all, what do they do? And what should they be doing, and also what the business should be doing as well. I didn't really know what the purpose was of the business. So we had to start from scratch on that. So for the first 3 years, it was probably more project delivery. And we had, we'd won a lot of projects, and we won some tenders, bids and tenders. We were delivering the Cyber Scotland partnership. We still are doing that. But things like that we had to hire people for specific roles and specific projects. So that the high performing team that we had at the time was very project driven, and they were achieving really great things at delivering projects. Over the last year, we've realized that, everybody's realized that the government funding is not going to be there. So if we want to exist as our purpose, we would have to change direction and change strategy. So we've had a complete change. So when you look at the storming, the norming, the forming bit, we had to go back, not right to the beginning, but around the storming side of things again, and look at how do we become more of a growth organization, but also still have that purpose of being a kind organization, as Nathalie says, is somebody's still got a purpose to help organizations, but how do we balance out the bit for making money to pay our wages? So we're on, we've started a new strategy over 5 years. We've also done a big restructure around who does what role and stuff. And there's been, what we have come up with is that we are going to be, and we haven't even spoken to Nathalie about it yet, but the board have given us a unanimous, the reason why I'm saying that for anybody listening, Nathalie runs the PR agency that we use. They will be part of this, and we will be announcing it in June, that we're going to become a social enterprise instead of not-for-profit, because people don't know what really a not-for-profit is. So we're going to be the social enterprise. We're also setting up a charitable arm of the organisation to look after individuals with fraud as well. So it's a huge change for everybody. And we felt it as an organisation. We also moved office from one location to another. So over the last few months, we've had huge change. The one thing we're talking about, people managers and stuff as well. I think when everything's going really well, people love being managers. When you're going through a huge project, and we're not a huge company, but it has been huge change for us, that's when people don't like being managers. And that's when, you're going, oh, my job is great apart from looking after people. And I'm like, yeah, but that, if you want to be a manager and you want to do that, and then somebody might decide, well, actually, I don't want to be that person anymore. But that's when your skills are tested. And also when I bring in the theory of things. So I did my MBA at Napier as well. I still go back to the theory and to go and, stop thinking. You have to go with gut instinct and the theory around the stuff. So it's going back to the forming, the norming and storming. And, how do we get back to be a high performing team, not on project delivery? But we're probably near there now, that people are speaking the right language that was alien to them a few months ago, that now it's like growth. Well, growth is Jude's job. So I'm like, you're all going to sit here in the organization, and I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to be the, look after you all, and growth is my job. But now the conversation is growth is everybody in the organization's role. And we need to be very clear on that strategy, but also give the people the tools to do that. So even the managers and managing people, and to understand that change is normal, change is going to happen. And it is really, it's going to be a big part of going through this, the growth of an organization and making us to become this high performing team in the area we need to be now, rather than being a project led delivery organization.
That's fascinating. I mean, we talked a little bit in the training element about, that, as I said, that kind of team model, a team profile, and how, if something changes within a team, and that affects that team dynamic, and you kind of bounce back down the curve and come back up again. But that's really interesting that sometimes it isn't the team that's changing, sometimes it's what the team's there to achieve, it's the overall landscape, it's the bigger picture which enforces or kind of nudges the team to actually look in a slightly different direction, or to take on an additional or different responsibility.
And that's it. Not, we had to go through that, revisit everybody's roles, and even that kind of conversation is very unsettling for people, because they're going, they'll think that I'm doing a good enough job. It's not a good enough job. You are all doing great, but what we hired you for is going to be very different. So if you all have different skills that we're probably not using, or you come into this organization, you're pigeonholed as somebody else. So I'm like, some people are here 2 years, some people are here 3, some people are here 4. Where do you want to be as part of this journey? What skills do you think, or you've seen somebody go, I'd like to do maybe a few hours in marketing, I'd like to help out with different things, or I'd like to do finance, or learn more about HR. Now's the time for us we can do that, we can change. And I want people to learn. The day that we're not learning, or we're not changing, and we're not learning something new, is for me, that's it, our job's done, and we can move on to something else. If we're not coming in every day to learn something, then what's the point? I'm not one of these people that can be comfortably sit there and not learn. I move organizations when I'm not learning anymore.
No, absolutely. And I'm hearing a strong kind of resonance, and when I'm seeing Nathalie nodding as well, the fact that focus on people, and on people changing their where they want to go with their skill set, their growth, and actually utilizing that change for individuals, rather than, well, that you don't fit in that pigeonhole anymore, away you go, I'll get somebody else that does.
Yeah,
no, it's fascinating.
And also we have to become comfortable that if there's big change, that if people don't like it, they are going to leave, and they're going to, we can't make people stay if they don't feel that they want to do this anymore, or they feel that it's a big journey, or it's a big step. I want to hear, like my staff, they're saying to me, this is really exciting. Everything's kind of what we've worked for the last 4 years is all kind of being a social enterprise. We're able to now say exactly what we do. We can prove that we are a social enterprise. We're not just starting out on the social enterprise journey and having to prove it in a few years' time. It's basically just a change of a title for us, or a way of us doing business. The way that we're doing business is the same, but there will be people that are like, I don't want to do this. I just want a comfortable job that I am going to do project delivery. And that we have to get comfortable in saying goodbye to people like that, and saying that's totally fine. The same way as if I'm not learning, I move on. And there's nothing wrong with leaving organizations if you don't feel that you can be part of that change, or that you can't envisage yourself in the organization in a few years' time or a few months' time.
I think that's a really important message for students and for early years alumni, is that it's about fit, and it's about you being happy and fulfilled and enjoying the role that you're doing. And if you change, then either the organization accommodates that change, or it's right for you to look at something else. Or if the organization changes and you don't, and actually want to continue with what you're doing, then it's that same equation. Is this the right place for me? Am I the right person for this place and for this particular role? And that moving on isn't failure, that it's growth, it's change, it's pursuing the things that's right for you. So that was really interesting, Jude. I think what you've described there was really was forming new teams, was rebuilding, was going back to brass tacks and creating things again. What I'm interested in this sort of final section today is the kind of tweaks, the maintenance. So the team's pretty much ticking over, things are going well, but something just stops. There's a bit of sand in the gears, something's not quite working. So what's the approach there? What's been your experience to how you tackle those issues?
We're both smiling at this one.
Yeah, I should maybe start with it. We could do a whole episode on it.
I'll go on this. I remember when I started on my career, I was a people manager. I didn't know how to manage people. It was like, well, you're good at doing that, so we're just going to be this team of people. And I think, people say to me, oh, some of your team are really young, and as if it's something bad. Nobody, when I started out my career, I was working in Dell. So I was well supported with HR, with people and stuff like that as well. But I didn't, when looking back, I was going, I never did anything with that team. They had other people running after them, because I was 1,000 miles away on a steam, you know, on a train going through a desert, and they were up in, you know, in a snowy hill. I'd left them so far behind. I was off doing the things, and I was younger than some of them. And it was like, what can you not just get on with your job? You know, it was that kind of, but, and I'm not, when I talk about change in our organization, we'd be lucky if change happens. That's it, 4 years now, we're changing again, and Nathalie probably be the same as well. But in Dell, every quarter was changed. We didn't, you know, it wasn't every year. You come in on a Monday after finishing off a really tough quarter, and it'd be like, well, you've got a new manager today, or you're moving to this team, or actually the team's moving to the UK, so, or you can reapply for different jobs. So you were very comfortable with change. But I have to remember here, some people are new to industry, or also some people have stayed in maybe an organization for like 10 years, and then they've joined us then thinking, I'd like to do something different. They've never had change in their life. So I remember doing an email going, change is normal, guys. But some people take change as if it's mourning. You know, it's like some people mourn for the job that they had, or the company that they had, or, you know, what way they felt and all that kind of stuff as well. But to normalize this, but if I'm as a CEO off out meeting everybody and expecting everybody then to be in the office just delivering this change when they don't know what change is, or are these feelings normal, are these things normal? And again, going back to the theory of change as well, and as Nathalie earlier about that has Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what do people need? And this is really important when we're going through stuff like this. They need to feel safe. They need to feel secure. They need to feel that they're going to be able to pay their mortgage, and that change doesn't mean they're going to lose their job. If it did mean they're going to lose their job, we would have had a very different conversation. Instead of changing your role, it'd be, so that's the kind of thing. Take time and don't go off on a steam, not even, I don't know, it's not a steam train's not even as fast as the way that I used to work. Don't go off 1,000 miles an hour on Elon Musk's hyperbola, whatever it is. But spend the time, and sometimes during change, it's 10 steps forward and 20 back and you feel like you've hit a rut, but that's all normal. You know, the next month it'll be 40 steps forward, and maybe the next 2 months, and then there could be a glitch then in something. But always look, you know, there's nothing, people go, I worry about this. I should do the worry in the CEO, because if, you know, everybody is going to move with this change at a different pace, and what you will eventually get to that area that you look back and you go, they're all talking in the same language, they're all doing the same thing, they're all delivering what our values are, they've all got the same purpose. That's success, and that's change. But it is difficult doing it.
That's really interesting. So we're doing also one of these sessions is going to be on change, and whether it's chosen change or imposed change, and how we react. It's interesting. So what I'm hearing is that actually supporting and maintaining a team is about supporting them through changes, and that's about giving them the time that they need and going at the pace that's right for those people.
And also it doesn't have to be. Yeah, it doesn't have to be change in the workplace either. It could be change, as long as I said, people tell me what's going on. You know, I am a mother, but, you know, my eldest is 19. It was a very different world bringing up children 19 years ago, and what was expected of mums. I seem like I'm 100, but we're here to help women. You know, we're here to help. It could be, I lost my dad 2 years ago. I think going through change in your life makes you a better person as well. And a people manager that before I'd never had somebody close to me, a parent or anything, die. And I've never had to support somebody in work. But now if somebody, my dad's in hospital doing that, go, you know, work's here whenever you come back. Whereas I see people going, so, you know, you see these things on Twitter going, so-and-so called me, they asked me if they could do it. And I was like, there's nothing more important than your family. You know, I look back now, I took the time. I remember going to the board and saying to the board, and even writing the words saying, I don't think my dad's going to be around for much longer. And it makes me really cry, but I had to write that. I was a year into the job as CEO. I completely transformed the organization. But I was still going, I need to go missing. I need to go missing for, I don't know how long. And eventually it was 2 weeks I had to go missing. But those 2 weeks gave me 2 weeks with my dad in Ireland and my mom to support her. But I would do that for anybody now, because, you know, he's my dad, and I can look back and go, I had that time. You know, and the board were like, now's our time to support you, and the team's time to stand up and support you. So it works both ways. CEOs will go through change the same, and they need support from the team as well. We're not superhumans. We are just human beings. So change will be all the time part of our lives.
And that's a really valuable perspective, because you're right. Sometimes it's just seen as you've got the strategic view, strategic responsibility, and you're supporting everybody else. But it's that two-way street. No, thanks for that perspective, Jude. Nathalie, so from your perspective, maintaining, keeping teams going, supporting them when things aren't working, rebuilding things when they're not, what's been your experience?
Everything Jude said. And then I guess to kind of add some other thoughts to the discussion. I'm a talker, but I think listening is really important, and I do find that hard, but I do try. So I think if you can see something that's not quite right, just sitting down with people, no agenda, having a chat. How are things going for you? How can we help you better? Are you clear on what you're trying to do? Do you have everything you need? Do you need more resource? Do you need a budget? Do you need some new software? I don't know what it might be. So really having those conversations and listening and letting people feel that they can bring things to the table, and that would be, that we're open to ideas. So that's a big one for me. The other thing that we use that I guess is more of like it's more of a year round, listening tool. We use a piece of software called Office Vibe. It's really good. So I've worked in big organizations where they do an annual staff survey, and by the time they've processed that data and, got to the end and launched the results out, half the team's changed, people are in different roles, people had a bad day when the survey came out. So actually, I think that the idea of an annual staff survey doesn't really tell you much. It's a bit too much of a snapshot in time. So what I love about Office Vibe, and I'm not on commission, I just think it's a really good tool. Don't even do their PR. So it sends out a weekly pulse survey to your team at a random time each week, and they get a selection of about 5 random questions related to everything from, are you supported by your manager? Is your organisation fair? Do you feel it's inclusive? Do you understand what your job is? Do you think you make a difference? Do you believe in the values? Do you respect the leadership? Do you have the tools you need? All of those, so all kinds of different questions. And it kind of aggregates this over time so that you get a really clear view of what your organization's doing well, and any areas that are kind of commonly being scored more, not as well. It benchmarks you against your industry. It benchmarks you against organizations of a similar stage, size. And if you're a bit bigger, you can also start to categorize by teams. So coming back to this idea of teams, if you have 3 teams and they've got a team leader of each one, you can actually hold people accountable to the engagement of their teams. So there's a bit of holding accountable, but there's also, you've got some really interesting metrics. And I still think sitting down and having a conversation with somebody is going to give you a kind of richness of feedback. But looking at some data points as well, just to see where people scored you from 1 to 10 on whether the organisation is inclusive, that tells you a lot. We get an employer net promoter score from this as well, which is telling us just a single question: would you recommend this as a good place to work? You obviously want that to be as high as possible, and if it's not, then you're doing something wrong somewhere, and you need to think about it. So I think data, both quantitative and qualitative, is really useful.
So that's really, I'm hearing 2 things. I'm hearing the insights, as you say, data, that kind of that pulse kind of survey, so you can get that regularly, or sitting down for that deep dive and having that cup of coffee for an hour and seeing what's really going on for someone. So that insights and the data, the information, but then people, and focusing on the people. And if you want to support your teams, if you want to address challenges within the team, focus on the people in that team and understand the people. And that is really interesting, because that kind of brings us full circle to what you both said at the start about, how to create effective teams in your area. And what came through very strongly was that individual people focus and that individual support focus. So that's been fascinating. So thank you so much for those insights. Now, the target audience, I'm sure this as a session is applicable for anyone at any stage in their career, but our target audience is early stage career alumni, and put some extra tools in the bag to support them. So I'm going to ask you to finish by maybe the one piece of advice. If you were winding the clock back to you've just finished at Napier, you've stepped out, you're raw, and you're making that start. What would that one piece of advice be to yourself in that stage? And Nathalie, I'll stick with you and ask you to start with that.
Oh, this is tricky. Right, I think I've got an answer for you, which is, I think in my early career stage, I was quite focused on job titles. So I was in a really quite hierarchical organisation, and me and all my peers, we were all good friends. We all got on. We were all just constantly chasing the next promotion and the incremental kind of promotions. And I think that's great, and it's there's a place for that. But think as well about the bigger picture. So that doesn't have to be the route to earn the most money or to have the best job. So think about your life balance. Think about what kind of organization you want to work for. Understand your own personal values, and if you're interviewing, then I think it's quite a fair question to push back on an organization to really challenge the person interviewing you on the culture, the values, and the mission, the vision, and what's the purpose of this organization. And I'm in my 40s now, but that's what we're seeing coming through from a lot of the sort of brightest talent coming into the industry, is people are less focused on the turnover of the organization and so on, and a bit more focused on, but what's the point of your organization, and how are you looking after people and planet.
I think it's a great piece of advice and a great perspective. Don't panic about getting there quickly. Focus on what you actually want to be, how you want to be, and not necessarily focusing on the title, and then you get there. No, I love that. Fantastic. Jude, what would your advice be?
I think I've got two. So probably like Nathalie as well, find your tribe. But is that, what do you want out of your life? So people say about hitting the glass ceiling. There's no glass ceiling. It's your glass ceiling. What do you want out of your life? If you want to be a mother, do you want to look back and go that you were able to spend that time, or were you on, because you wanted that high title, were you on trains, planes and automobiles for the first few years of their lives and missed out on so much? Find your tribe, don't put yourself under pressure, particularly as a woman as well. And, find people that will support you in an organization that will support you, because I think that takes off so much pressure for us to be able to find our glass ceiling then as well. And the second one, don't dump the theory books. There's when you're finished your exams and you're finished the things, you want to have a ceremonial burning of the books and your notes and stuff. Don't do that, because when you hit some things or something in your gut that something's not quite right, and you're going, I did do something like that during my degree or my MBA, let's go through the notes. And you sit, I still have them in boxes from my MBA and a postgrad and started strategy and stuff I did in Ireland. And it was like, right, so there's the theory, here's my gut instinct. How do I, take the emotion out of it and look at, people have spent years understanding the theory and writing about it. It has to be worth something. So don't burn the books.
So as our sponsor, I'm sure Napier will be delighted to get that piece of feedback. But I think you're absolutely right. And I think you've got the academic theory, you've got all that knowledge there, and then the rubber meets the road. And actually, you kind of find where you apply that, and you'll probably take that piece. You both mentioned Maslow. I'm sure our business school students will be getting flashbacks. But it's how you apply it, and your depth of knowledge and understanding of those theories changes. Because right, that's what it means. That's what it means in this situation today. And actually, in a similar situation in a month's time, it might be a little bit different. But you've got that framework and that underpinning knowledge, which is immensely valuable, and stops you kind of feeling lost at all at sea. You've got something to kind of hang it on to move forward.
Or are you right or are you wrong? There's no right and wrong, but is this a normal feeling? Is this a normal process? Is this a normal thing that happens? Yeah.
Brilliant. Listen, I've taken up more than enough of your time, so I just want to say thank you once again for sharing those perspectives and that advice and that information. It's been really, really valuable. So thanks very much.
Thank you. It's been very cathartic as well.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I've got some notes, action points.
Excellent. Well, maybe get you to share those with us and we'll circulate them to the team. Great stuff. So thanks again, guys. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.